His name is Steve Lawton. He is the head of IT, director of IT transformation at Dell, but that's not why he's here today, even though I'm sure that makes him the prettiest girl in the room right now. His background, he has a BS and an MS degree in mechanical engineering from A&M, as well as an MBA from St. Edward's. He holds 2 U.S. patents and has 27 years of professional service in roles ranging from an engineer in the astronaut office at NASA, so, you know, some pretty good cred, to an executive at Dell, I just said. He has been a TEDx speaker, so if you love watching those TED Talks, I'm sure he's on there, and has spoken at large corporations like Dell, Accenture, Starbucks, EMC, and VMware. He's been featured on Little Things USA, KVUE News, and has been a guest lecturer at A&M and University of Texas. Wow, both schools. And he enjoys speaking and sharing what he has learned over the years. He had a very traumatic experience a couple of years that was 3 years ago, that was very enlightening. And we were very fortunate that he's actually here to tell us about it. He is the author of the book called HeadFirst, A Crash Course in Positivity. And that is what he is going to be talking about today, but I'm going to let him tell you all the details. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce Steve Lawton. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the introduction. It is great to be here today. You'll hear more about my story in a second, but I just really want to start with kind of the question for you to think about during my presentation, and it's really how important do you think your attitude is in you achieving the results that you want. For me, I'm going to tell you the story about how my attitude literally saved my life. It's a pretty crazy story, and as I tell it now, each time I tell it, it seems surreal. But what I'm going to talk about is not just my story. I'm going to talk about the science behind how important our attitude is in us achieving the results, and then the things that we can do to improve our attitudes over time, some strategies for you to take out of here with it and use in whatever objectives you have for yourself right now. So my story starts with this picture. In this picture, I love this picture. How many skiers do I have in the room? All right, a few snow skiers. So if you're a snow skier, you look at this picture and you say, okay, yeah, those are good skiing conditions. The sky is blue, perfect weather, the temperature was perfect. There was nobody on the run, so first thing in the morning we had the mountain to ourselves. There's a ton of snow on the ground. There's snow in the trees, which means that it snowed recently. As an avid skier, I've skied my whole life. I was on this run going up, and I was with my brother-in-law, and we were literally giddy about how excited we were, about how great it was to be skiing that day. And I love that picture not only because of all of that and what it represents, but I love that picture because it's not the last picture I ever took. I took it it was March 9th, 2014, a little over 3 years ago, and I took it before meeting this tree on the first run of the day. It was a groomed black diamond run. Black diamond is one of those steep runs. Groomed means there was no bumps on it. It was just flat. We were the first people to ski on the run, and I had a freak accident. I came out of both of my skis in the center of the run. I don't remember falling. I don't remember what happened. I came out of both skis, landed on my back, slid down the run. My brother-in-law, who happened to be skiing behind me on the run, said I accelerated after I came out of my skis because the run was so steep. At the bottom of the run turned, I went straight and went right into that tree. Now I had a Ski Tracks app on my phone that was recording the incident, records how fast you're going, where you are on the mountain, and it said when I hit the tree I was going 45 miles an hour. 45 miles an hour into that tree. Nobody actually saw me hit the tree, but I can't imagine what that looked like if somebody watched it. Now thankfully, I was wearing a helmet. I hit that tree head first. So even though it's not the main point of the presentation, if you do ski, one of the rules after seeing me up here talking is you have to wear a helmet. So this is my helmet, and you can see that the hole in the back of it. I hit my head. I can promise you I would not be talking to you today if I wasn't wearing that helmet. So if you ski, please wear a helmet. So later that morning, my brother-in-law found me wrapped around the tree. I was unconscious, coughing up blood. Ski patrol came. I woke up. They skied me down the mountain. I don't remember any of this. Skied me down the mountain. My brother-in-law called my wife. We were on a spring break family vacation that was cut short with this. He called my wife that hadn't left the condo yet and said, "Don't go out skiing. Meet us at the base. Steve's been in an accident and you need to see him at the base." And he wouldn't give her any specifics about what was going on. So she met me at the base. I was awake when I got there. She could hear me talking with the doctors. And then what they said, I decompensated, so I passed out. They intubated me, an emergency intubation, and put me on a helicopter and flew me to Denver. So this is what I looked like when I got later that afternoon when I got out of surgery. What the doctor told my wife when I got out of surgery was that I was as sick as I could be and still be alive, and I was going to get worse before I got better. So I was barely alive, and I was going to get worse was what the doctor told my wife. And my wife's reaction to that you might find very strange, but it gives you kind of an indication of who I am. Her reaction to that was, "I'll take it." And the reason she said that is because there wasn't room in the helicopter for her. So she had to drive to Denver with my brother-in-law. It was about a 2-hour drive. And when she got there, went into the emergency room, told him who she was and that she was looking for me. And the attendant at the emergency room got on the phone. She said he got a funny look on his face. And he said, "Well, did you get a chance to talk to your husband before he got here?" She said, "No." And he said, "Okay, well, it was a very serious accident. He was taken to Trauma 10, which is our most serious emergency room that we take our most critical patients. And if you could have a seat in the waiting room, we have a private waiting room if you'd like, and the chaplain will be down to talk to you momentarily." And she's walking to her seat thinking, why is the chaplain coming to talk to me? And she's trying to hold it together. So all she can think of is that maybe I didn't make it. And so for about 10, 15 minutes, she's just trying to hold it together. And one of the things she thought of during that time, she told me about later, I thought was funny, but it again gives you an indication of who I am. She thought to herself, "Man, if Steve's dead, he's going to be pissed." which is true. I don't have any recollection of the other side or bright lights or anything, but I could easily see myself arguing with staying at the pearly gates going, "No, man, send me back down. I got more to do. I got these kids. I'm having fun. I could beat this thing. Come on, just give me a chance." No idea if that happened, but I could see myself up there doing that. So I thought that was funny, but that is the attitude that I bring to anything. So when my wife heard I was as sick as I could be and still be alive, and I was going to get worse, knowing that all I needed was a chance, my wife was like, "Oh, this is so good. That's way better than being dead." So that was how this started. So there are a lot of reasons why I'm alive today. God saved my life. The doctor saved my life. My wife saved my life. This presentation is about the role my attitude played in saving my life. But there's a lot of people that tell me that a giant rubber chicken and a purple polka dot bikini saved my life. So many of you probably saw Henrietta here. But I got Henrietta on day 4. So this is Henrietta, and she honks. The significance of Henrietta, she really did help to save my life as well. I don't know who thinks of this, but one of our good friends, as soon as she heard that I was in this terrible skiing accident, barely alive, she said, "Steve needs a rubber chicken." She said this was her rubber chicken. She said she packed her up and shipped her to me, and I got her on day 4 in the hospital. And she came out. She was packed in a tiny little box. When she came out, she reinflated and made that honk noise. And my wife opened her kind of beside me on the bed, and I couldn't like turn my head to see what she's doing because I had that stuff on me. I just hear the honk and I go, "What on earth are you doing over there? What is that noise?" And she comes around the side of the bed and holding Henrietta and laughing and reading the card that came with her and said, "This is Henrietta, the good luck chicken. And she's helped us through a ton of hard times, and she's yours now, and she's going to help you through this." And I could promise you I was not in the mood for a giant rubber chicken when I got Henrietta. But I was like, looking at my wife is cracking up with it, and I go, "Okay, I guess I need a rubber chicken." But she did play a role. From that point forward, we sent her on the counter in the ICU room, and from that point forward, everybody who walked into the room would like freeze in their tracks and look over and go, "Okay, you have a giant rubber chicken in your room." And we'd have a laugh, and we'd introduce Henrietta, and maybe they'd go up and make her honk or talk to her a little bit, and then they'd get on about their business. But Henrietta changed the mood of the entire ICU room. It was no longer just a place of suffering and misery and hard work. It was a place where there was a full range of emotions, where we also had some humor and laughter, and it just changed the mood of all the doctors, of me, my wife, and our visitors. It gave us an opportunity to take a break from the pain and misery and suffering of whatever's going through and laugh for just a moment. And those minutes of laughter, those moments of laughter could break whatever situation or whatever struggle you're going through just for a moment and allow you to break away from it, and then you can reapproach it again with a fresh perspective or a little bit of relief. And oftentimes that's when new ideas come in or new energy comes into the situation. So it's chapter 5 in my book about how to use positivity to improve your life, but it's about injecting and using laughter and humor effectively in your life. Even in the most difficult situations, you can use humor. So on the accident, so I was in the hospital. So my injuries, real quick. So I had a severe head injury, bleeding between the skull and the brain. So severe brain injury. I had bleeding inside of the brain, so like a bunch of mini strokes, they said, bleeding into the fourth ventricle, which is one of the chambers that holds your brain fluid. I damaged the nerve that controls where my eyes point, so my eyes were no longer pointing in the same direction. I bled into my left eye, so I couldn't see out of my left eye anymore. Bled into my left ear, so I couldn't hear out of my left ear. I collapsed both lungs. I broke my sternum in several places. I tore a blood vessel behind my sternum that bled into my heart cavity, so my heart couldn't beat properly. And I broke 11 bones. I broke my sternum, my ribs in 3 places, my left arm, and 6 vertebrae. I broke my neck in 2 places, and I broke my back in 4 places. Any one of those injuries could have killed me. The survival rate on many of those is less than 50%. And just to have survived is a pretty remarkable story. But to have recovered like I have nearly completely recovered. Not quite 100%, but to the point where talking to me, you would have no idea. Watching me, I have no restrictions in what I can do, or there's no chronic pain. I feel like I'm a walking miracle. And I really do, and I'm living on bonus time. So it's changed my life completely, and changed my life for the better. So what I do now, I believe that I was brought back for a reason, and I believe that God gave me this story to share it. And the reason why I say that my attitude literally saved my life was on day 6, I had my breathing tube removed. My lungs had healed enough that I could breathe on my own. And the doctor said that for me to continue healing and to survive, they were worried about me getting pneumonia with all the blood that was in the bottom of my lungs. They said, in order for you to survive, you cannot get pneumonia. You have to get that blood out of the bottom of your lungs for your lungs to heal. Because if they got infected, I could get pneumonia and it could kill me. And they said, you have to do your breathing exercises in order for your lungs to heal. Well, my breathing exercises hurt. You have a broken sternum, broken ribs. Taking deep breaths when all of that moves is not something you want to do. So I was like, you know what? 6 days, my lungs have healed just fine. I'm going to let them continue to heal just fine on their own. I don't need to do anything else. Day 7, I heard God talk to me. And what I heard was very short, it was brief message. Steve, if you want to live and see your kids again, you need your lungs. And if you want your lungs, you're going to have to fight for them. And then it was gone. And I'm laying there in my hospital bed going, dang, I know what that means. Like I have to do my breathing exercises. So from that point forward, you could say I did it religiously since it was God that told me to do it. But I did my breathing exercises every hour like the doctors had told me, and I did it as strongly, I don't know the right word, as strongly as I could. My wife says I did it more frequently than that sometimes. But every time I would do those breathing exercises, breathe into a device called a spirometer. It measures how much air you bring into your lungs. And they'd always give me a target that I could never reach. But I'd take like 4 or 5 deep breaths. And every time I would, that just the breathing hurt. But every time I would do it, it would loosen up some of the blood in my lungs. And I would have a violent coughing fit within a minute. So take about a minute for that blood to loosen up and like feel it like when you have a bad cough, you have something down there that's coming up. Once it starts rattling around, you're coughing and you're coughing until it comes up. So I would have a violent coughing fit within a minute of doing that, and I would cough up whatever blood had loosened up. Have you ever had a cough with a bruised rib? Having a violent coughing fit with a broken sternum, broken ribs, broken back was by far the most painful thing I've ever done. And I did it every hour, more frequently than that. I was like, because the option was I was going to die. I was like, that is not an option. So as painful as it was, I did it. And 2 days later, on day 9, my lungs had healed to the point where I was almost completely off of oxygen. I was able to take a shower that day without the oxygen, taking oxygen into the shower. But after dinner that night, I started experiencing shortness of breath, where all of a sudden I couldn't catch my breath anymore. They put the oxygen back on, started cranking it up, and every time they did, it would be okay for a little while, and then it would get worse, and just continued to not be able to catch my breath. And I had the mask on at this point and had the oxygen up to maximum, and the nurses are standing around my bed talking to the doctors on the phone. This was in the middle of the night, and trying to figure out what was wrong with me. Well, I had suffered a complication called a bilateral pulmonary embolism, which is where your blood, exactly, you know what that is. It's a complication that will kill you. That kills almost everybody that gets it. And I'm convinced that if I hadn't have done those breathing exercises for those 2 days, that the doctors would have not had the time to diagnose and treat, give me the blood thinners to start breaking up those lung clots. So that's why I say with conviction that my attitude literally saved my life. So when I got out of the hospital, and that's why this message is so important to me. And I know it's anecdotal, but I'm one of many examples of how important an attitude is in health situations, and it's true everywhere. So I was in the hospital in Denver for 3 weeks, transferred back to Austin. I was in an inpatient rehab in Austin for 1 week, and then I was in outpatient rehab for the next 3 months before I started back at work at Dell. So accident happened on March 9th. I was back in Austin in a month and back at work at Dell part-time at the beginning of July. It took me about a full year to recover the whole thing, but at the time, it seemed like it was slower than Christmas. But I look back on it now and go, man, it was pretty amazing how quickly I healed. But at the time, it was painful. Like I just wanted to get better. I was super impatient. But one of the things I was studying during that time, and the thing I was most worried about, was my brain injury. Was I going to get better? Was I going to recover the things that I could see that I had lost? And so I started studying the brain. And one of the things, I learned several things about the brain. The first was, I was really lucky to have brought a positive mindset to this event. I'd always been positive throughout my whole life, and without really knowing it, I've been building up my positivity. I've been studying positive leadership with Dell, and just always been an optimistic, forward-leaning, forward-looking person. So it was one of the things I learned, how important a positive attitude is in just healing in general. The second thing that I learned that was important for me was the concept of neuroplasticity. And through neuroplasticity, I would be able to recover from my brain injury. What neuroplasticity means is that now that we have MRIs, the neuroscientists have been able to see that our brains are physically changing every day. And they're changing based on what you think and how you exercise your brain. So for me, as suffering a brain injury where I had suffered memory loss and task switching speed was much slower, all I had to do to get better at those things, so those neurons, the pathways that I had damaged, was practice it. And my brain would rebuild those pathways just by practicing, just by thinking. There's science behind it. The science has proven that violinists, for example, have a larger portion of their brain dedicated to their left hand than the right hand. Because the left hand is doing the neck and requires a lot more intricate movements. So their brain, violinist brains, have changed and physically made the structure of the brain that controls the left hand bigger than the right hand. Taxi drivers in London, they showed that they have a bigger portion of the brain dedicated to spatial maps than the rest of the brain. And that's because they use those spatial maps all the time. Whatever you use in your brain will change its structure to make it easier for you to do that. So it's true for positivity. They've done studies of the brain around positivity and showed that people that keep a gratitude journal, they studied them, have shown that the parts of their brain that are dedicated to positivity and their attitude grow when they do a gratitude journal for 7 days. It boosts their positivity circuits in their brain. So what's important is no matter how optimistic or pessimistic you are right now, that's just how you are today. That's not how you're doomed to be the rest of your life. If you want to be more positive and you think your attitude can make a difference in your job search or in whatever it is that you're trying to do, all you have to do to get a better attitude is practice it. Practice it. I'm going to go through a number of principles that you can go through to become better at being positive and practice it. And through neuroplasticity, it just becomes your natural reaction. For me in that hospital bed, when I woke up, I think it is strange now when I look back on it, but it never occurred to me that I wouldn't recover. I woke up and I couldn't talk, and I asked my wife 3 questions. Was the first thing I did. I kind of made a symbol to write, and my wife, the doctors had told her they weren't sure I was even going to ever wake up again. And so the fact that I was awake and that I was making a motion to write, they were like running around the room trying to find a clipboard and a pen. Found one and gave it to me, and I wrote 3 questions like, where am I? And my wife said, well, you're in a hospital. And I'm like, what happened? And she said, well, you were in a skiing accident. And I'm like, when can I go home? And it looked like that picture up there with the screwed things in my head. And she's, doctors are going to keep you here for just a couple days and just make sure you're okay. And I'm like, all right. But my reaction was, it never occurred to me that I wouldn't get better. It never occurred to me that things may not be the same. My reaction was, okay, this sucks. I don't like this. It's going to be a lot of pain and a lot of misery and a lot of hard work. But I know how to do that. I can get through this. And so that's what it just became. It was just about how do I get past this one situation and get all the way better. So without really knowing it, throughout my life, I had been working on that neuroplasticity and building up my positivity to where even when something that terrible happened to me, I just had that natural reaction. I didn't have to convince myself that, okay, come on, man, let's be positive. There were times later in my recovery, as it was slowing and I couldn't see the daily progress, where I was frustrated, like, come on, like, come on, this is hard work, man. Let's just speed this up a little bit. But you just have to toughen up and know you're doing the right things and get through it. So the 3 things: positive mindset leads to better results. That's the first thing, and it's been proven with a number of scientific studies. I'm not an anomaly with my health. There's a TED Talk specific to this group, probably a resource that you have for the teams here, but TED Talk by Dr. Amy Cuddy that took job seekers or people that did mock job interviews, put people in either positive or negative mindsets by placing them in confident or unconfident poses prior to a job interview that they take. So if you haven't seen this TED Talk, you should Google it. Amy Cuddy, positivity or body posture. What she did was she put people into positive body posture. I call it the Wonder Woman pose or Superman pose, where she had people stand or sit in a confident posture for 3 minutes. And I do this quite frequently to purposefully set my positive mindset. I'll either sit in a confident posture or stand in a confident posture for 3 minutes. And it's weird, but it works. Your brain is looking at your body posture and deciding, are you confident or are you hiding or are you being weak or unconfident? And it changes your actual mindset based on your posture. You can feel it. It's weird. It makes no sense, but it's what's happening inside of our brain. That's how we're wired. So when you stand or sit in a confident posture, think about how you feel before you do it, and then think about 3 minutes later, you're like, yeah, okay, I do feel more confident. So Amy Cuddy did this and videotaped these job interviews and then showed them to other people and said, who would you hire? And predominantly the people chose the people that before the interview had been put in a positive posture versus a negative posture. So it makes a difference at job interviews. So get nothing else out of this. Before your next interview, if you're not in a public place or you're in a public place, go to the restroom, stand in the stall for 3 minutes like this. And maybe somebody will see you, maybe not, but you might have to explain yourself. But it will change your mindset going into that job interview. It's one of the most important things that you can do is set that positive mindset. So you can train the second thing, you can train your brain to be more positive. You're not just as positive or optimistic as you are today. With practice every day, doing something that makes you positive, you're boosting that circuit. Every time you boost that circuit, your brain recognizes that you use it, and it'll make it stronger. And over time, you will do it. It's not instantaneous, but over the course of weeks and months and years, you will boost those positivity circuits and become a more positive person. And the third thing is, there's a number of things that you can do to be more positive. I've captured 8 of them in my book here that I wrote about this situation. But I'm going to go through a few of them here. And really, the way I talk about this, I do this in a lot of work settings. I talk about it in work settings about solving a problem. Whatever problem it is you're trying to solve, there's 3 things you have to do to solve that problem. And the first one is have a purpose. So live and lead with a purpose. So, as I said, this accident changed my life, changed my perspective on life, and I believe I was brought back to share my story. And that's my purpose now. I'm in Dell talking about this all the time. The leaders inside of Dell, I probably talked 50 times inside of Dell sharing this story with different teams. I talk outside of Dell in as many opportunities as I can because I believe it can help people. But that's my purpose in life. And so one of the things that I do with this live and lead with a purpose and ways to do it yourself is I have a part of a morning routine that I do every morning, and one of the 3 things that I do in that morning routine is, well, the 3 things are, one is meditation, 15 minutes of meditation, and then I recite my intentions, and then I do my gratitude journal. I write down 3 things I was grateful for that happened in the previous 24 hours that I'm really looking forward to in that day. The second thing, those intentions, I recite them. I have probably too many. I don't know that I'd recommend this many, but I have 14 intentions that I have in my life. And some of them are intentions of how I behave. Some of them are things that I want to go do. And every morning I recite them. I get my cup of coffee after my meditation, and I stand outside and sip my cup of coffee and on my back deck and say, first one is, I will enjoy this moment. And then I pause and I look at the trees and listen to the birds or the crickets, depending on what time I get up, and I do it. 5 seconds, just go, God, it's great to be alive today. And living on bonus time, it changes your perspective, and I keep refreshing that every morning in my mind that you are lucky to be here today. Wednesday of this week, I dropped my daughter off at college, at TCU, and I got to do that. Could have been dead. pretty crazy. I just love being alive. Sorry. So I get to be a part of and touch so many lives and the ones that I love. Anyway, these intentions that I have, I will enjoy this moment. I will enjoy this day. I will use this day to move towards my objectives. Everyone who comes in contact with me today will be better off as a result. And I go through that. Some of them are that day. Some of them are that moment. Inside of Dell, my job in IT is transforming IT. And I will make Dell IT more agile and more lean. That's what I want to do inside of Dell. I will see Haley's Comet when it comes back with my wife, my kids, their kids, and maybe even their kids. And I'll do it with a clear mind. Now, I'll be 95 when Haley's Comet comes back. So I want to do the things today to stay healthy and be a part of it. But there's a number of things that are like that moment and in my lifetime and how I want to behave, and a number of very specific things that I want to do or I want to accomplish. Every morning that I go through that, I don't wake up every morning bounding out of bed going, "Oh, this is awesome!" But I do feel a ton better after I recite my intentions. No matter how I'm feeling going into those, when I'm done with my intentions, my positivity, my energy level is noticeably different. It makes a difference in my life. And that's how I start my day, with positivity. So this leading with a purpose is hugely powerful. When I was laying in that hospital bed, my purpose was to recover 100%. It's like, I'm going to recover all the way. There's no question, no doubt. That's just what I'm going to do. And it became, I'm going to recover 100%. Then I took that back to, if I'm going to recover 100%, I have to get back to Austin. If I have to get back to Austin, they have to let me out of this hospital. If I'm going to get out of this hospital, they got to get me out of ICU. If I'm going to get out of ICU, I talk to the nurses. What do I need to do today? What can I do? You do your breathing exercises. You do your walking exercises. You can. They were keeping me busy inside of there with all these physical therapy and stuff that they had me doing. Brain exercises, everything. I did it all. So this purpose can be as big as that. It can be when you're starting a meeting. The purpose of this meeting is that by the end of the meeting, we're going to review all the problems with this project, and we're going to review our action plan to address them, and we're going to make sure we're all happy with the direction we're going. This can be as simple as that. The second thing is purposefully and repeatedly setting yourself into a positive mindset. Every time you think, am I in a positive mindset? Do something to purposefully set that positive mindset. And there's thousands of ways to go do it. There's some that work for everybody. There's some that are going to be unique to you. Try what works for you. It only takes a moment. But do it. You'll notice that different. And every time you do, you're building that positivity circuit. It can be things like smiling at somebody. When I smile at somebody, you get a smile back. You can't help it but smile back when somebody smiles at you. When somebody doesn't smile at you, they're working hard not to. Because we all have mirror neurons in our brains that's how we're programmed to interpret emotions. We see somebody, we try on the emotion we see in their face so that our brains can perceive it and go, oh, that person that feels happy, you subconsciously make a little smile and you go, oh, that's happiness, and then you move on about your way. So you literally are a reflection of what you do. So you can smile at somebody. One of the most powerful things you can do to improve your positivity is give someone a compliment and do it publicly. You get a big boost in positivity and confidence when you give someone else a compliment. It helps you actually almost as much as it helps the person receiving it. But that person receiving that compliment also gets a boost of positivity. And anybody who witnessed it also gets a boost of positivity. Not as strong as the giver and the receiver, but everybody in that room or on that group chat or whatever it is gets a little boost. Like, oh, that was nice. So you could smile, give someone a compliment, do the Wonder Woman pose, go for a run, get some exercise, go outdoors, tell somebody you love them. There's thousands of ways to go and do it. The third thing that I talk about is what to do when it all goes to shit. Because it is all going to go to hell at some point. Hopefully you don't run into a tree. But things aren't going to go our way. We're going to struggle. Our self-esteem is going to be hurt. We're going to have a loved one that says something to us that we're not happy, that hurts us. We could lose a loved one. We could lose a job. All of these things are times when things don't go our way. And they suck when you're going through them. They really do. And none of us like it. But if you look back on all the things that previously in your life that you had gone through, the times that you were growing or changing or learning the most were the times that you were suffering. They made you who you are today. They changed the trajectory or course of your life. They taught you something. They are why you are what you are today. So whatever you're going through right now, it's a learning opportunity. It may not be something you're looking forward to, you're happy about, but you will learn something during this time that you're struggling. And it'll change the trajectory of your life. Often you're not going to know what it is that you had to learn until you're way past it. For me, the skiing accident, I wasn't thinking, oh, this is going to really help me. I was not thinking that when I was in the hospital bed. I was just suffering through it. And it was a year later, literally I celebrate March 9th now. I call it my Alive Day. And I celebrate it like a birthday. And on my first Alive Day, March 9th of 2015, I had a nice family dinner with my wife, my kids, my brother-in-law and his family. My wife's sister and her mom and husband were over, 10 of us sitting around our kitchen table, having a great dinner and just saying, hey, you're not dead. This is awesome. It's great to have you around. My wife made a cake, wrote "Life is Good" on it, and it was just a nice celebration. I was going to bed that night, staying in my closet, and it was the second time during this situation that God spoke to me. And he said, Steve, you lived a bonus year. What'd you do with it? And I was like floored, and I just stood there, just literally froze. And I'm trying to come up with something good, like, oh. And I couldn't, like 15 seconds, I was like, oh, what did I do? And all I could come up with was, I healed. And I heard, okay, that was good. You did a good job with that. It's like, oh. And then it said, you're not going to be able to say that with your next bonus year. What are you going to do with your next bonus year? And again, froze, like, I got to come up with something good. Like, I'm going to stop climate change, or I'm going to save the elephants, or, I was like, none of those felt right. And all I could come up with again, after about 15 seconds, is like, I'm going to tell my story. And I heard, okay, that'll work. And then it was gone. And then I'm standing there in my closet going, what the hell does that mean? Like, what did I just promise to do? I don't even know what that means. And that was when I started on this journey. And what led to the next day going to Dell. There's a talent development organization, and I saw an email from them, and I was like, ooh, I'm going to talk to them, tell them my story, see if they think anybody in Dell would even want to hear something about this, because this doesn't have anything to do with work. And they said, yeah, people want to hear this story. And so a month later, I gave it the first one, and the feedback, the reaction I got was overwhelming. It's like, okay, this is a story worth sharing. So I did, and I've done it over and over again. It was 4 months later that I turned it into a book to really talk about help people through struggles in their lives and situations. And so the what to do when it all goes to hell. There's a couple strategies in the book. I'll share one of them. And it was something that I got from a business book called Enlightened Leadership. When everything goes to hell, you ask yourself 5 questions. And the first question is by far the toughest to answer. And it's, what's going well? And you ask that question, oftentimes nothing will come to you for a little bit. Stick with it until it does. What's going well? The second question is, why is it going well? Get under the covers of that a little bit and try to understand what's going on that's making that thing go well. What you're looking for is, how can I use this? You're looking for ways to go use it to move forward out of this situation. The third question is, what's my objective? Where am I trying to go? The fourth question is, why is that objective important to me? Getting into the what's in it for me, or what's in it for my organization or the world or whatever it is. Why is that objective important? It gets to your internal motivation, and hopefully it gets you some energy and some motion. And then the fifth question is, who's going to go do what by when? So if it's just you and your situation, then sorry, but you get to do all the work. But that gets you to action. What are you going to go do different? I've done this many times inside of an organization, inside of Dell. with teams, have an hour-long meeting after a project is, going terrible or something happens, and we bring the team into the room and ask these 5 questions. And the difference from the mood of that team walking into that room to the mood of that team walking out of that room is 180 degrees. The very first time I did it, I was just floored by how, if everybody almost literally ran out of the room because they're excited about things they were going to go do that were going to help us solve the problem. And I'm standing in the room by myself going, wow, that was crazy. That was amazing. So this works when it's just you. It works for teams. It's enormously powerful. There's one other one that I don't have time to go into because I'm probably already over time today. The last thing I'll say is make it a habit. That neuroplasticity again. You're not just as positive as you are or optimistic as you are right now today. You can change it. You can become more positive, more optimistic, so that the next time you're in a situation, your natural reaction is to faster to acceptance and, okay, where do I go from here? You'll be much better able to move from why me to what now. And that's what I want to do.